Well, greetings and salutations, everybody. Welcome to my YouTube channel. My name is John Campea, and this is a companion video. What is a companion video? Well, I'm glad that you asked. You see, on the John Campea Show, I take some time, and on open mic on the weekends, I take time to take live questions, but we don't always have time to get around to all those live questions. So what I like to do is I like to gather up those questions we didn't have time for, bring them over here, and answer them on companion videos. So, without any further ado, let's get right into today's batch. And we're going to start getting caught up with Padraic Conway, who thinks, do you think The Gifted will say Erik or maybe Magneto? I've been wondering that myself. For those of you who are not watching The Gifted, you should. The first season was last year. Really solid. I'm not totally caught up. I've only watched episode 1 of season 2 so far, so I'm not totally caught up. But they do make it pretty clear. Actually, I shouldn't say they make it clear. They insinuate that the one girl's dad may be Magneto, right? Do I think they'll say Erik or Magneto? I don't know. They say X-Men a lot, but they don't actually mention any X-Men by name. You know what I'm saying? So I'm not really sure that we'll... Look, the funny thing is, like I said, I'm probably 2 or 3 episodes behind. For all I know, they've actually already said the name, but I'm going to go out on a limb right now and guess that they're not going to say it. At least not this year. But who knows? That could change. All right, next up. Adam Tander writes, hey, John, been a massive fan ever since your Hobbit review from about 4 years ago. Thank you so much, man. Big congratulations on your new position. So deserved. Excited to see what great content you'll be bringing us. Well, thanks a lot, man. And, of course, on Friday, we launched, I guess you could call it the John Campea Show Phase 2 from the new studio. I was extremely happy with how it went. I'm absolutely over the moon with how it went. Yeah, there were a couple of technical problems. The audio overall was too low. The lighting on me was a little too bright. The lighting on Courtney was a little too dim, but we'll get those things fixed out. I'll be honest with you. I expected problems for the first episode. I was expecting more problems for the first episode. But that seemed to be it for the technical problems, so we'll get those figured out pretty quick. But thank you so much, Adam. I appreciate the kind words. All right, next up. Lyle Navin writes, I hope when DC reboots, well, if I don't think they're rebooting anytime soon, but I hope when DC reboots, people won't mock DC anymore. Well, I mean, look, not everybody mocks DC. Some people like what they do, but, you know, they do get a lot of criticism, and you know, some of the criticism they get is deserved. I mean, fair. They have not put out product that everybody can get on board with. Some of us, including me, have gotten on board with it, but even those of us who are on board with it can understand why they wouldn't. First of all, I think they should reboot, but obviously it doesn't look like they're going to. And then as to whether or not people will mock them, well, it's up to them. It's up to Warner Brothers, you know, and what kind of product they put out. And they can get off to a good start with this Aquaman movie, which looks really good. And you got James Wan directing it. I think everything's in place for Aquaman to be a really good success. And I don't mean making $1 billion, but it doesn't need to make $1 billion. I think Aquaman can be a great success, and that would be a good start. But again, Lyle, it's all up to Warner Brothers and DC with what kinds of movies. If they put out movies that are really divisive and a whole bunch of people don't like again, they're going to get mocked more. Just like any other movie. Like Tom Cruise's The Mummy got mocked. I mean, that's just the way it is. So it's really up to them at this point. Dakota Walker writes, John, I missed the news. Where can I read about it? Sorry, Dakota, I'm not quite sure what news we're talking about. Sorry, man, I gotta be a little bit more specific than that. Ben Rayner writes, any updates on Sisters Brothers? Well, you wrote Sister, but it's Sisters Brothers. And that's with John C. Reilly and Joaquin Phoenix, Riz Ahmed, Jake Gyllenhaal. It's gotten great reviews. It's a Western for those who may not have heard of it, and it's already in theaters. The problem is, I did some looking around a few days ago, and I don't think the movie's getting a wide release. I thought it would, considering, you know, the type of star power you've got in this movie, considering the reviews it's getting, the reception it had at a couple of festivals. I figured it would get a wide release, but it's not. It's only getting a limited release. Now, it's not a tiny limited release. I think it's going to be playing in like 50 cities, but, you know, it's not going to be on like 3,000 screens like a lot of wide releases. It's probably going to play on like 100 screens countrywide. So I really thought it would get a wide release. At this point, Ben, it doesn't look like it is, which is really too bad. Zach Dunbar writes, doubt your powers will give power to your doubts. Oh, well, this is almost unfair. Just for those of you who don't know what Zach's doing, a lot of people like to throw in movie quotes. That's almost unfair because it's from one of my favorite movies. It was a movie that is so far ahead of its time. Mystery Men is something the Sphinx says in Mystery Men. Good quote. Doubt your powers will give power to your doubt. Master your rage before your rage will master. Are you going to say your rage will master me? You were going to say it. Anyway, that's where it's from. Holland Love writes, going to see A Star is Born tomorrow. Can't wait. Oh, and it's great. It's great. I don't think it's a perfect movie. But for a directorial debut for Bradley Cooper, great job. It's got a few moments here and there that didn't quite work. A couple of small mistakes that Bradley Cooper made as a director. But overall, it's a breathtakingly wonderful, moving kind of movie with terrific performances, great direction. I think you're going to have a really good time watching it. Dark Horizons 211 writes, hey, John, just wanted to say keep hope that Venom will be good. Keep up the good work and looking forward to your new setup next week. Well, obviously this was last week. And Venom was good, despite what a lot of critics say. I mean, don't get me wrong. There are things wrong with Venom. And I can totally understand, critic or fan, that went into Venom, saw the same movie I did, and didn't like it. I can totally understand why. I had issues with Venom. To me, the positive stuff outweighed the negative stuff, so I had fun with it. Especially once you got to the Eddie and Venom relationship and dynamic, that stuff worked great. But, it was a bad antagonist, horrible first act. I could totally see why there are people who don't like it, but I had a good time with it. So, and yes, we had a great launch with the new show. So thanks so much, Dark Horizons. Stubble McShave writes, Wheel of Time was greenlighted, bigger than Game of Thrones. I don't think so. No, I don't think so. I mean, Wheel of Time is a hugely successful set of novels, but we've seen before that just because you have some really popular novels does not mean it's going to translate into a successful television show, movie, miniseries, whatever. Now, Amazon is the one that's making the Wheel of Time series. And, they're also making a Lord of the Rings series. Amazon, everybody right now is looking for the next Game of Thrones. Amazon is really going all in on it by doing a Lord of the Rings and a Wheel of Time one. Will either of them be bigger than Game of Thrones? No, I don't think either of them will be. But the books, we're not talking about the books. And just because the books were big does not mean anybody's going to go see the show. Or I don't know. There's something to me about, look, it's not like I've read the Wheel of Time exhaustively, but I've read a bunch. I don't know that it plays out cinematically very well. I don't know. You're going to have to wait and see. Could be great, could not be great, but, I have all the faith in the world in Lord of the Rings too, but it's not going to be bigger than Game of Thrones. I don't think either of them will be. I mean, anything's possible, but I don't think they will be. Hardy Buck 4 writes, you hear about Ethan Hawke retracting his statement about the superhero movies and admitted he loves Logan and Doctor Strange. I think a little of that might be PR spin, but then again, I don't really care. I mean, look, I think sometimes we put too much weight, and I think I'm guilty of this too, just full disclosure. We got to remember, a lot of these times that these celebrities make comments, it's when they're kind of cornered in an interview and then asked something out of nowhere and they just give their first reaction, whatever, and then we all hold them accountable for it as if it was a planned statement. You know what I mean? And look, Ethan Hawke said some really stupid things about the comic book genre. I'm not surprised he's backtracking on some of those. I've always liked Ethan Hawke. He's a tremendously gifted guy. I've had him in my studio before. I've had a chance to talk to him on a number of occasions. He seems like a totally legit, authentic, real guy. I've always appreciated him. It was stupid comments. He seems to be trying to walk them back now. And honestly, I don't care. I'm over it already, as I think most of you guys are over it already. Not Your Average Gamer writes, if Venom's considered somewhat of a failure and there's no Spider-Man reference, does that open the door for him to join the MCU? No. Or should they create their own version when the time comes? Love the show. No. I mean, first of all, this is obviously over a week old. Of course, Venom, let me pull it up now. Venom was anything but a failure. Venom right now, it had an $80 million opening weekend, which blew away all expectations at that point. It's made well over $400 million already at the worldwide box office on just a $100 million budget. So they are well into the profit range now. But even if it had failed, then it's damaged goods. I don't think Marvel would have been looking to use them. Besides, it wasn't covered in their deal. So no, even if it had failed, it wouldn't have increased the chances of it being in the MCU at all. But that's all moot now because Venom's a big hit for them, so that kind of takes that out of it. Thomas Lunn writes, "Hey John, your thoughts on British comedy? Hot Fuzz, Shaun of the Dead, Monty Python, Kevin and Perry, Four Lions, Snatch." Well, I mean, my thoughts on British comedy is the same as anything. It's like anything. Some of it's great, some of it sucks, a bunch of it's in between. It's the same thing with Bollywood movies, the same thing with Canadian film, it's the same thing with big Hollywood films, same thing with indie films. You got a bunch of it that's really great, bunch of it that really sucks, and a whole ton of it that's in the middle there somewhere. That's what I think of British comedy. Now, a couple of things you mentioned, Hot Fuzz is great, Shaun of the Dead is great, Snatch is great, Lock, Stock. I mean, there's a lot of great things, and there's a lot of crappy ones too, but it's no different than anything else. Tortimer the Gray Gaming writes, "Have you heard anything about the live-action Watership Down miniseries? Boyega, McAvoy, and by the way, Taron Egerton, Sir Ben Kingsley, supposed to be in that as well, that Netflix and BBC were supposed to be putting out this year." They first announced it back in like 2015. Then in 2016, they named who was going to be in it, and it was going to be a BBC Netflix joint production, blah, 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 blah. For the last I heard, it's supposed to come out this December. But I haven't really heard anything else about it. Honestly, for all I know, they never went into production. All I know is that the last I heard, it's supposed to come out sometime in December of this year. But again, they may never have started day one. So I don't know at this point. I haven't looked into it. So if you guys have looked into it or if you heard some stuff, please jump in the comments section and let us know. Hardy Buck 4 writes, "Can you recall the first time stepping out of the Return of the King?" Oh, yes. "And what was your initial reaction? Seen in my local theater, and it's epic as always." I remember I've never been so engrossed in end credits like I was with Lord of the Rings Return of the King. Just the credits were emotional. Because we had been on this 2-year journey. John, there are 3 movies. Yeah, but from film 1 to film 2 was 1 year. From film 2 to film 3 was 1 year, so it's 2 years. But we had gone on this 2-year journey with them, right? 3 films, 2 years. And then it ends, and they had that end credits with the pencil sketchings, the art sketchings, showing different moments and characters throughout it, as that amazing Annie Lennox, Into the West, the greatest end credit song in the history of film. I'm telling you, but once every 2 or 3 months, I'll just pop on that song, Into the West, and I'll just think about Lord of the Rings. It's amazing. On the horizon. I'm not going to try to sing Annie Lennox. It's just so beautiful and moving, and like I've never been that riveted in end credits, just watching the images, and it's like recapping these last couple of years that we all had spent together, and I knew from the first time I saw the movie, I knew this was one of the greatest movies ever made. And today I still maintain that while Lord of the Rings Return of the King is not necessarily the greatest movie ever made, it is the single greatest achievement in filmmaking. I've been saying this for ages. When you take into consideration all the various disciplines and arts that go into making a motion picture, costume design, makeup, cinematography, writing, directing, acting, visual effects, music, performances, blah, blah, blah. When you take in all the dozens of different disciplines and arts that go into making a single movie, I challenge you to show me a single movie with that much, that had achieved that much. It's incredible. It is, in my opinion, the single greatest achievement in film history. I really do. I still believe that. So anyway, that's kind of the way I look at it. But yeah, man, I'll always remember the way I felt coming out of that movie for sure. Bo Hunk writes, "Have you seen Solo yet on digital?" I actually haven't. I saw it a number of times in theaters. I haven't seen it on digital. They added some scenes and did some edits. The Kessel segment flows so much better now. Good to know. I mean, I really, really enjoyed Solo. I thought it was a great, fun space adventure movie. It was wonderful. It was a swashbuckling space adventure. It was perfect for what it was trying to be. A movie that nobody asked for, by the way. But Ron Howard did what Ron Howard does. He stepped in. He saved that movie. Made a really enjoyable film. So I'd be curious to see what these changes are. Don't have a lot of time, but I'm be curious to see what those changes are. All right, Gabriel Barreto writes, I saw the first 2 episodes of Titans at a screening in New York City, and boy, I enjoyed it. The way Robin says, F you, Batman, in the episode is used more in context than how it was used in the trailer. Well, remember, I've said that before, right? Like, I believed when we saw the trailer, and I said this during my trailer reaction to it, and the trailer is just garbage. But I remember saying, look, I bet there's a really good possibility here that in context in the show, when this line happened, he says, F Batman, right? I bet in context it's going to play a lot better. But man, it was a mistake to throw it in the trailer. Go, look how dark and edgy our show is, kids. Robin says, F Batman. Ooh, aren't we dark? Like came across as desperate and pathetic. So I'm not surprised. I'm not surprised to hear that it played better in the show. I'm not going to be watching it anytime soon. I have no interest in the show. The trailers were absolute garbage. I'm not going to go and get the DC streaming service just so I can watch Teen Titans. Now, when they do, what I am curious about is the Swamp Thing show they're going to do. So once they have a little bit more content and more original programming on there, then I'll pick it up. And at that point, I'll probably give Titans a shot, but probably not before then. But I'm glad you enjoyed it, man. Gabriel Reed writes, since Venom was supposed to be rated R, it was never supposed to be rated R. So let's just get that out of the way. Did Sony purposefully make it PG-13 because they knew it wouldn't get a great reception from critics? No, it had nothing to do with it. Anytime that studios are aiming for a particular thing, it's for marketing's sake. It's for marketing's sake. I think what happened was they made their movie and they realized this movie could easily be PG-13. Okay, then let's just do it. Let's just tweak the few things we need to tweak to make it PG-13. And that's what they did. And you know, the funny thing is there's a lot of damn violence in the movie. There's a big body count, huge body count in Venom. You know, I mean, the Venom eats people in this movie. The difference is that when a guy gets run through with a giant, huge blade that then pins him against the wall, you don't see blood gushing out. That's the only thing. That's it. You see the big blade going through him and all. You just don't see squirt, squirt, squirt. That wouldn't have made the movie any better. And I said this for a long time. A lot of times today, what gets you your R rating isn't even violence. You can get away with a hell of a lot of violence in PG-13s. What gets you your R rating these days is anything that's sexually suggestive or explicit and obscene language. That's it. Did any of us expect to hear a lot of F-bombs dropped in Venom? Would more F-bombs have made the movie better? Nah, I think what it came down to was they made their movie and then at the end of the day said, okay, what would this movie get? And it was probably just going to get a PG-13. And if it wasn't that all we have to do is just change this visual a little bit and this a little bit. And remember, Sony doesn't give a rating to its own movie. They submit their movie to the MPAA, and the MPAA gives them a rating, right? So there was never a point that it was supposed to be R. I mean, one time the director said, we're going for R, but just because you do that, you do the film at the end of the day, it was probably closer to PG-13 and R. So they thought, well, then we'll just do a PG-13, made a few tweaks to make sure it got the PG-13, submitted to the MPA, and away they went. And it didn't need to be rated R. This was a movie that in no way, shape, or form needed to be R. Martin Volek writes, saw Venom yesterday, kind of entertaining and funny. Story is meh, action is lacking, some things don't make sense, not horrible like the reviews say. Well, remember, there's a bunch of critics that liked it. Like, I remember I got into this online debate with somebody. Let me see if I can pull this up here. I got into this online debate with somebody who was trying to tell me that every single critic hated Venom. And I'm like telling, well, no, first of all, that's not true. Not every single, yes, it is. Every single critic hated Venom. I'm like, but it's got a 30% on Rotten Tomatoes. Right, that means nobody liked it. I'm still shocked how many people still have no clue how Rotten Tomatoes works. Rotten Tomatoes did not give Venom a 30% rating. What the 30% means is that they collected all the information from all the critics everywhere and go, how many of them liked the movie versus how many of them didn't like the movie. 30% isn't a score. 30% is the number of critics who saw it that liked the movie. So roughly 1 in 3. 1 out of every 3 critics liked the movie. 2 out of every 3 didn't. That's what it means. And I tried to explain it to this bonehead that this is not, no, there are lots of critics that like Venom. Just on the Rotten Tomatoes count of 254 critics, 77 of them liked it. 177 didn't. But a whole lot of critics did like it. So yeah, let's just be clear. There are a bunch of critics that liked it. And I enjoyed it too. But again, it's one of those movies where I think if you're honest, and even if you love Venom, I think if you're honest, you're going to go, yeah, but I could see why people wouldn't like it. Like, I like it, and I had fun, but I can totally see why people wouldn't, right? I think Venom is one of those kinds of movies, but I enjoyed it. I had a good time. I'm glad you had a good time with it too. All right. Krieger 119 writes, I don't think Venom was as bad as people thought. It's not bad, but it's not great. Decent humor, but I felt a lot more could have been done with Venom and the CGI. I had fun with it, though. I'm going to disagree on that part. I actually quite liked the CGI. I thought the CGI was great. I thought Venom looked really good. Understanding the type of, the texture that the symbiote has, I thought the physical manifestation was great. Yeah, so I got to say, and you're not the only person, Krieger. I've heard a number of people complain about the CGI, but honestly, as a guy who comes from the visual effects world, because I worked in the world of visual effects for a while, I thought the CGI was great. Was it the best I've ever seen? No, but I thought it was great. I thought it was really well done. So I'll disagree with you on that one a little bit, just a little bit. All right, Celestial Marmalade, I love that name, writes, hey, John, I'm not a big fan of country/folk music, so it got me thinking. Can a person's musical tastes make them less likely to enjoy a film like A Star is Born? Congratulations, by the way. Contrary to popular belief, there is no country music in A Star is Born. I know you see Bradley Cooper wearing a cowboy hat, but he's a rock star in the movie. At least that's certainly how it played to me. And listening to all the other music he does in the movie, there's this one song that he played in the trailer. Maybe it's time to let the old ways die. I guess you could make an argument that if you listen to that song a certain way, it sounds like a country tune a bit. But a lot of the other music he plays in, it's clear he's a rock act. He's a rock musician. So that's not a problem. But yes, I hate country music. I hate it. I think it's awful. Actually, I think the term in itself is an oxymoron. Country and music. That's an oxymoron. I don't like country music at all, right? But I loved Walk the Line. I loved Walk the Line. I love Coal Miner's Daughter. As long as the story's good, it doesn't matter if you like the music. There are people who hate hip-hop but really like 9 Mile. I can't even remember the name of the stupid Eminem movie. And I think it's 8 Mile. 8 Mile. I know people who are not into rap or anything like that, but they like 8 Mile. So yeah, I think you're perfectly good. I think you're safe. Murray Reich writes, do you like Diet Pepsi or Pepsi Max? I like Max better because of the taste. I am not a fan of Pepsi Max. I much prefer Diet Pepsi, as a matter of fact. But thanks for asking. Chad's Big Huge Geek commentary writes, Shrek 5 has a May release date, but not even a mention of it from the studio. Weird to me. It does not have a release date. Unless I'm wrong about that, but let me just open up Box Office Mojo's release schedule and look in May. And, yep, nothing. There is no Shrek listed as having a release date in May at all. Or anywhere, as a matter of fact. Hold on a second. Yep, no release date there. So maybe at some point, sometime, there were some reports in the past that, they're working on a script and maybe they'll be aiming for a May 2019 or something like that. But as far as I know, that never actually happened. So we can probably bury that one. God, I would love to be wrong about that, though. I'd love to see a Shrek 5. Carrie Nevis writes, could Disney put Tom Holland Spidey as show on streaming when Sony takes Spidey back after Far From Home? Well, first of all, I don't think Sony is taking Spider-Man back after Far From Home. With Venom's success, I think that ensures, I told you guys this before, I said, if you want to see Spider-Man stay in the MCU, you better hope Venom's a success. Because then Sony can see, oh, we can make successful movies in our superhero universe and we didn't need Spider-Man. Great, we can leave Spider-Man in the MCU. And I told you, if Venom flopped, Sony would go, oh, I guess we can't make this work without Spider-Man. Better go get Spider-Man back. So what did I tell you? Venom now is a big hit for them. I believe Spider-Man is safe in the MCU. But let's say, for argument's sake, that Venom flopped and Sony took back Spider-Man. Could Disney then put a Tom Holland Spider-Man on a streaming show? No, they can't. They can't do a live-action Spider-Man. That's a violation of their contract. So, no, even if Sony had taken Spider-Man back, Marvel could not use Spider-Man anymore. That would be it. Tout fini. They would not be allowed to use Spider anymore at all. Not on television, not in, in anime, but just not live action. You couldn't do anything live action with them. Let's see. Aaron Kin writes, I love the Brendan Fraser movie Mummy. Which one was better in your opinion? The Tom Cruise Mummy or Brendan Fraser? Oh, easily Brendan Fraser's Mummy. Easily that one. Now, I didn't think that the Tom Cruise Mummy was anywhere near as big of a train wreck as a lot of other people thought. There are a lot of people who just thought that was just an absolute garbage movie. And it does have a lot of problems. But I didn't think it was all that bad. I thought it was not great, but I didn't think it was all that bad. But still, yeah, the Brendan Fraser one, clearly by a mile for me, the Brendan Fraser one over the Tom Cruise one. No questions asked. John Hine writes, pile of bodies, pile of heads. I'm guessing that's another movie quote, but this one stumps me. That one, I don't know what that one is. If you guys know which the quote, pile of bodies, pile of heads comes from, jump into the comment section and let me know. All right, guys, that will do it for this installment of the companion videos, getting caught up on a bunch of questions. We still have more to get caught up on, so there are more companion videos to come. Thanks a lot for being here, guys. Don't forget the John Campea Show, now in the new studio, makes its return on Monday morning. Make sure you join us for that at 10 a.m. That's our new start time, 10 a.m. Pacific Standard Time. That's 1 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Hope to see you guys there. That'll do it for me, guys. My name's John Campea, and until my next video, bye-bye.